What is going on, guys? In today's video I will show you the top 3 best witch builds in Path of Exile 2. In this guide I will give you a quick overview of the best setups for both ascendancies, so Infernalist and the Blood Mage. Then I will explain what skill gems and upgrades should you focus on. Then as well we'll see what is the best gear and how to get it for both the mid game and end game. And then finally we will go over the passive tree, attributes, your skill rotations, and even what Atlas passive should you use, so we would be able to get the highest damage possible and much more. If you are looking for any of these builds on the website, then click my link in this video's description or the pinned comment. Before we begin, I personally had low FPS and lag issues while playing POE 2. Then when I started using LagoFast, not only my FPS improved, but my gaming experience was much smoother. Moreover, LagoFast is an all-in-one game optimization software that gives you access to features like the loot filter and the Twitch drops. To get it up and running, just click on my link in the description and download LagoFast. Then after logging in, first click on the search bar and type Path of Exile 2. Select the server and the node, and then after these few simple clicks, LagoFast Booster will improve your gaming internet connection and reduce lag issues in the background. Then on top of this, to use the loot filter, you will need to click on this icon, then install it, then click Import Confirmed. And now re-enter the game. You'll see that items of different values are displayed in various colors, making it easier to filter and pick up a high value item. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description to try out the free trial of LagoFast. And if you're impressed with the software, then don't forget to use my code CADE to get a 30% discount. This setup is the Spirit Minion build, which summons bunch of raging spirits by casting the Flame Wall for the offense. And then also for defense, we get to command a minion army. So unlike most other builds where you only command or cast spells, well, in this one we get to do both, and thus increase our DPS even higher. By using specific gear and building our skill tree around nodes like the Power of the Dead, Fear the Dead, Silent Guard, and many more, it will enable us to upgrade our minions and projectile area and damage. So if you're ready to explode anyone and everyone that stands in our way, while also getting a skeleton army that follows and protects you, then let's get right into it. So let me show you the build, and for the main class we have chosen to go with the Witch, and the ascendancy is the Infernalist. At first glance it looks like we're using way too many skills, but most of them are passive and will work in the background, so we will only use few of them on our skill bar. Then for the first skill we have the Summon Infernal Hound with support gems like the Elemental Army, Meat Shield, Fire Exposure, and the Strip Away. Then second we got the Unearth with Minion Instability and the Infernal Legion. Then next we got the Flammability with the Heightened Curse and the Spell Cascade. Then next we have the Skeletal Arsonist with Feeding Frenzy, Scatter Shot, and the Martial Tempo. Next we are also using the Flame Wall with the Fortress and the Arcane Tempo. Next we have the Skeletal Warrior with the Brutality, Splinter, and the Maim. Then we got the Raging Spirits with the Fire Infusion, Elemental Focus, and Emulate. Next we have Pain Offering with Magnified Effect and the Persistence. Then also we're using the Skeletal Storm Mage with Conduction, Storm Fire, and Overcharge. Next we have Skeletal Cleric with the Ingenuine and Last Gasp. And finally for our last one we got the Grim Feast with no support gems whatsoever. Most of this build is structured around using minions and the raging spirits, so we use gems and skills that will support and increase their area and damage, while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually activate in the background. Next, let's quickly take a look at our leveling setup, which we need to use up until about level 25, because the first few levels can be a bit rough until you get the Raging Spirit skill. So first off we have the Unearth with Minion Instability and Brutality. Next we have the Skeletal Sniper with the Martial Tempo and the Scatter Shot. Then next we also got Contagion with Concentrated Effect and Elemental Focus. And then finally we're using the Flame Wall with Fortress and the Arcane Tempo. This is your basic setup up until we increase our damage. Next up we have our passive tree. For most new players this can seem extremely daunting, so let me quickly explain. In very simple terms, every character is granted one passive skill point every time they level up, and are sometimes even granted more for completing certain quests. We have 3 node types, so small nodes, notable nodes, and keystones. All of them act as checkpoints that you want to reach and make a path to build around a specific playstyle. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at the spell and minion damage node, and make our way like this while on our way grabbing the Raw Destruction and the Power of the Dead. Then now let's go to the right and get these 2 red nodes and then these 2 more blue ones. Then after that we want to circle back a little and make our way all the way to here to get the pure energy, which will increase our defense, which we desperately need in the early stages. Then now let's go again back to the top, but this time take the left side, and then from here we want to take all of these half circles, so we could get the essence infusion, then the growing swarm, and also the dispendable ward. And now from here just make your way all the way to the top of the right side. And the order in which you do it doesn't really matter, as long as you follow this path. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for our Ascendancy build, this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock this Loyal Hellhound for an extra minion and reduce damage taken by 20%. Then second, pick the Altered Flesh. Then next, get the Baidat's Will for more maximum spirit. And last, pick up these 2 small life nodes, since you want as much life as possible for the Baidat's Will. And then as far as the attributes go, I recommend to take enough strength and dexterity to meet the gear and support gem requirements, and then use the rest on the intelligence. Next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Rattling Scepter, which base grants us +2 levels to the minions. And then for the bonus stats, we also want to get increased percentage to the minions, allies deal more physical damage and just more damage increase in general. And then for the offhand, we got the Blazing Crash Shield with armor and energy shield. And for the bonuses, we want max life and more resistances like fire and lightning. Then for the helmet, we have the Iron Crown with armor and energy shield. For bonuses, we want max life, plus levels to minion skills and more to cold resistance. Then for the chest, we have the Pilgrim Vestments with armor and energy shield. For the extras, we want max life, more to spirit and fire resistance. Then for the belt, we have the Rawhide Belt with increased life recovery to flasks. And for bonuses, we want max life, fire and cold resistance. Then for gloves, we got the Thorn Gloves with max life, fire and cold resistance. Then for boots, we're using the Straw Sandals with energy shield. And for bonuses, we want increased movement speed, max life and cold resistance. Then for the first ring, we got the Sapphire Ring with cold resistance. And for more, we want max life and attributes like the Strength, Dexterity and Intelligence. While on the second one, we got the Ruby Ring with fire resistance. And for more, we want max life, dexterity and intelligence. And then finally for the amulet, we got the Jade Amulet with dexterity, max life, more to spirit and plus levels to minion skills. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. So the general gameplay of this build is to summon the Raging Spirits by casting the Flame Wall. Then use the Minion command skill provided by the Skeletal Arsonist to deal area-wide damage. You can also cast the Flammability to either reduce enemy damage done or increase your minions' damage. Then as far as utility goes, you want to cast the Unearth on the enemy corpses to spawn an army of the minions that explode when they reach low levels through the Minion Instability and the Infernal Legion. You also want to buff your army of the minions with the Pain Offering to increase their damage. But as I said, this build is very versatile, so there's no one best way or order that you should use your spells in. What I usually like to do is just to have always my minions up, and then just spam Flame Wall, Flammability and the Unearth. And then for harder boss fights, we can even implement the Pain Offering and other support skills. This setup is known as the Bonestorm Witch build, and this skill by itself is a slow clearing ability, but with the right gems, passives and synergies, we can make it 100 times better, and this is exactly what we have right here. This build also has 2 variants, so going full crit chance, what I will personally be doing for myself, or then perhaps go with the Detonate a Dead variant. Both of these will excel at different things, so which one you choose is up to you. This variant, so the full crit chance setup, excels at huge amount of damage. We won't be focusing on anything else besides the massive crits and stacking as much life as possible, because the more life/defense we have, the more damage we can do in return. Also, at some point in the later game, some lowered gear players might run into a mana problem, but lucky for us, the Witch has many tools to address this problem. And with optimized gear, we need nothing more than a single stat roll on our weapon or the gear to completely solve this issue. So if you are finally looking for a super fun Blood Mage build that primarily doesn't use the life leech, but instead goes full life and full crit, then this is the one for you. So let me show you the build, and for the main class I have chosen to go with the Witch, and our Ascendancy is the Blood Mage. Then for the first skill we have the Bonestorm, with support gems such as the Brutality, Arcane Tempo, Inevitable Critical and the Super Critical. Then second we got the Bone Cage with the Spell Cascade, Lockdown and the Splinter. Then next we got the Life Remnant with the Vitality, Clarity and the Cannibalism. Then next we have the Combat Frenzy with the Perfusion, Pin and the Potential. And finally for the last one we got the Bone Blast with no support gems. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you are interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guide. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at the spell and minion damage increase node. Then next we want to keep on going like this until we get to our first stop, which is the potent incantation. Then now keep on going to the right side to get this critical exploit. Then now we circle back a little and keep going like this until we get the sudden escalation. Then now from this point we go down like this, then take the right path and keep going until this point, and then keep going all the way up until the tempered mind. Then next we go down a bit and then take right, which will take us all the way to our first keystone, the resonance. Then from this point we want to circle back again and simply get the last two priority nodes called the Power Within and the Last for Power. And then finally from this point and onwards you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. All of the nodes that we got are important, but the ones I mentioned have the top priority, as they're the most important ones to acquire early on in the game, to make our build functional, and then in the late game to make it even more powerful. Also, as far as attributes go, so you just simply want to fill your attribute requirements for the gear and skill gems, and then after that, spend the rest of your leftover attributes into more strength. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for Ascendancy build, this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the Sangumancy, but please don't get it too early. This node is required for every Blood Mage, and this ability does ton of self damage, and it can be quite hard to mitigate this in the early game. So I recommend for you to wait until you complete your second trial, and then take your first and second Ascendancy at the same time. So then after the second trial you want to get the Grasping Wounds. This one will make you significantly tankier and synergize very well with the Sangumancy. So as I said before, get both these Ascendancies at the same time. Then next, take the Gore Spike. This will scale off your maximum life and is a big damage boost. And then finally for the fourth option you want to take the Crimson Power, as this will give you a massive energy shield body armor, and this will also scale really well with our previous Gore Spike. Next up we have our Atlas passives, and the general idea behind this is to aim for bonus passives that spawn a lot of grouped up monsters, such as in expeditions or the rituals. Our Bonestorm Blood Mage build won't be doing crazy amount of damage against single targets, so we mainly want to do very small farming in boss maps or the essences. So then when we start we want to first of all get this bottom right side like this, then from here go like this until we get all the way to the left side. And then when all of these passives are done, then now we go again to the middle, and now take the middle path and then go a bit to the left again and get all of these nodes. Then next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Attuned Wand with the mana drain, and for the extra bonuses we want increased spell damage, plus 3 levels to all physical spell skills, then also increased critical hit chance, and more percentage to critical damage bonus. Next we also have the offhand called the Emblem Crest Shield, with the armor and energy shield. This specific shield is the best job that I got, but it's not required. However, for bonuses we want max life, cold and fire resistance. Remember that our main goal is to stack as much life and resistances as possible, so that's why you will see few stats repeating all over again. Then for the helmet we have the Expert Vicar Tiara with the energy shield, and for more we want max life, cold and fire resistance. Then for the chest we have the Guild Vestments with the armor and energy shield. And for bonus stats we need max life, evasion rating and the fire resistance. Then for the belt we have the Rawhide belt with the increased recovery to the flask, and for the extras we want max life, lightning and chaos resistance. Then for the gloves we got the Torn gloves with the energy shield, and for more we want max life, increased armor and evasion. Then for boots we're using the Bushwhack with the evasion. For this build we will need to get these boots or use the pin gem on our Combat Frenzy. So which option you prefer, it's up to you. But if you have the pin then the boots are not required, but still very powerful. So get it or not, but at least go with as high movement speed as possible. Then also get evasion rating and more to dexterity. Then for the first ring get the Ruby ring with fire resistance, and for more we want max life, lightning and chaos resistance. While on the second one we got the Sapphire ring with cold resistance, and for more get max life, fire or lightning resistance. And finally for the amulet get the Solar amulet with more to spirit and max life. No matter which gear you choose, at least try to get 75% resistance cap on all 4 elements. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. Our main rotation will be the same, no matter if you choose to go with the full crit or the detonator variant. So for weak enemies we simply want to choose a target, and then just spam the Bonestorm with the Bone Cage. And then for bosses or elites we still do the same thing, just this time also integrate the Bone Blast with the Bonestorm and the Bone Cage, and it's that easy. Most of our buffs will work in the background, which will give us the real damage, so then all you have to do is get used to the mechanics, which are mainly to use the channeling trick, then to be kiting enemies 24/7 and pick up the life remnants, and then from here just spam the Bonestorm and the Bone Cage and have fun. This setup's main focus is to scale fire from our attacks and target big enemy groups to then set them on fire and explode. We are going to be taking the advantage of seemingly limitless power scaling of the demon and then the massive damage of the fire skills. That will help us to decimate endgame content with ease. While leveling, we are going to be similar to other casters. So we shoot fire, things die, we level. However, the endgame is a different beast, because once we get our basic fire setup, we can then start all the maps in the demon form and kill enemies, while its effect ramps up to 70 to even 100 stacks plus, which then we disable the form and instantly reapply to the start demon form all over again, and this way we will be able to stay in the demon form forever, while also having insane amount of DPS stacks at the same time. So let me show you the build, and for the main class I have chosen to go with the Witch, and our ascendancy is the Infernalist. Then for the first one we got the demon form with support gems such as the Vitality, Precision, Clarity, Ingenuity and the Cannibalism. Then second we got the Raging Spirits with the Fire Infusion, Feeding Frenzy and the Martial Tempo. Then next we got Fireball with a Scatter Shot, Fire Penetration, Arcane Surge and the Considered Casting. Next we have the Flame Wall with Inspiration, Arcane Tempo and Magnified Effect. Next up we have the Solar Orb with Elemental Discharge, Fire Exposure, Searing Flame and the Maim. Then for one of the last ones we got the Firestorm with Overabundance, Spell Echo, Hourglass and Inevitable Critical. Then next we have Cast on Ignite with Ember Facilate, Impetus, Energy Retention and Fire Mastery. And finally for the last one we got the Flammability with Vitality, Precision and Cannibalism. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you're interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guides. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at this energy shield node, then keep going like this until we get to the mana blessing. Then next we keep continuing moving forwards, and on our way grab this breath of fire and also the arcane blossom. Next up we want to go to the left and keep going until the circle, and then here we take this whole thing. Then next up we want to circle back a little, and from this point this time we move forwards until we get to the top, and then take left and we want to get all of these fire nodes. Then next up we again circle back a little, and this time take right and keep going until these nodes. So Ingenuity, Raw Mana and Arcane Intensity. Then next we want to get our 2 keystones, so first of all get the Eldritch Batter. And then once we have this one we go all the way to the left by following our previous path and keep going until we unlock the Mind Over Matter. And then finally from this point and onwards you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. All of the nodes that we have are very useful, but the ones I mentioned have the top priority as they're the most important ones to acquire early on in the game, to make our build functional, and then in the late game to make it even more powerful. Also, as far as attributes go, you just simply want to fulfill your attribute requirements for the gear and skill gems, and then after that spend the rest of your leftover attributes into more intelligence. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for our Ascendancy build this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the Demonic Possession, then second get the Master Darkness, then third get the Altered Flesh, and finally for the last one we want the Baydad's Gaze. Next up we have our Atlas passives, and the general idea behind this is to aim for bonus passives that spawn a lot of grouped up monsters, such as in expeditions or in rituals. So when we start we want to first of all get to this bottom left side like this, then now keep going until we get to this Deadly Evolution keystone. Then from here keep going all the way to the right. Next we again want to start from the middle, and this time go to the top middle and get all of these passives. And then from here you get the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. On top of this, we also have these other trees specifically for breaches, expeditions, rituals, delirium and etc. And for these, the order that you select them doesn't really matter, as long as you follow this exact path. So this is what we have for the ritual. Then we got the delirium. Then next we got the bosses, and then also specifically we have the pinnacle bosses. Then also we got the expeditions, and finally here we have for the breach. If you are looking for a full Atlas tree tutorial, then just watch my beginner guide. Then next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the attuned wand, which gives us mana drain, and for bonus stats we mainly want increased fire damage, increased spell damage, or pretty much anything else that will increase our level or DPS of our spells. And next we also have our offhand, the advanced crystal focus, with energy shield, and for more we need increased mana energy shield, increased energy shield recharge rate, and fire resistance. Then for the helmet we have the advanced Vicar tiara with energy shield, and for more we need max life, increased maximum energy shield, chaos resistance, and life regen per second. Then for the chest we have the Ghost Bright with energy shield, and we mainly want to get this armor for the chaos resistance. And because our 50% of max life is now converted to the energy shield, and this will become very useful as we are using the life regen, and because of our keystone setup, which I will explain in just a second. But as this is an endgame item to help you with the harder content, so this is not required, and you can get any other body armor, just make sure that you have good resistance, increased energy shield, and life regen on hit. Then for the belt we have the utility belt, with 20% quicker flask recovery, and for more we need max life, more charm slots, and life regen per every second. Then for gloves we got the expert Sombri gloves with energy shield, and for more we want to gain life per every enemy hit, then also gain life per every enemy killed and the lightning resistance. Then for boots we're using the expert feathered sandals with energy shield, and for more we need max life, increased movement speed, which is pretty much a requirement to get on every single boots. And then finally we have resistance like lightning and fire. Then for our rings we got 2 copies of the same one, so we're using the Ametas ring with more percentage to chaos resistance, life regen per second, and fire resistance. This is for sure one of the best rings, as it's pretty hard to find any good items with a chaos resistance. And then finally for the amulet we got the lunar amulet with max energy shield, max life, life regen per second, and cold resistance. No matter which gear you choose, you at least want to try to get 75% resistance cap on all 4 elements. This is a starter setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. So our rotation is pretty straightforward. Start our rotation with a solar orb, which forms a huge AoE, which will spread the blind, maim, and the fire exposure, while being an easy way to trigger our elemental discharge as well. Then next we use the flammability for curse, and then use the flame wall to buff our next fire skills and spread our ignite. And then from here we just cast the firestorm and finish it off with the fireball, which will do massive amounts of damage while the rest of our spells are active. And on top of this, don't forget that our Ember Facilate from the cast on Ignite is always proccing in the background. So let me know what you think about this build in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, then you definitely don't want to miss my top 3 best builds video, where I showed even more powerful builds. So click the screen now and I'll see you in the next one.